The Supreme Court has just redefined how America handles trade, ruling that only Congress, not the president, can impose broad tariffs. For years, presidents used the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to levy tariffs, claiming national security. But the court's decision ends this era, shifting the power to tax imports back to Congress. From now on, sweeping tariffs require public debate and approval in the House and Senate. This ruling could mean billions in refunds for companies that paid tariffs, and it marks a new chapter in U.S. trade policy. The landscape of American commerce and its global relationships has been fundamentally reset. Tariffs are taxes on imported goods, making foreign products more expensive. For example, if Brazilian coffee faces a 40% tariff, that cost is passed from importers to consumers. Governments use tariffs to protect local industries, like U.S. steel, or to generate revenue. Before income tax, tariffs were a main source of government funding. Tariffs can also be used as leverage in trade negotiations, pressuring other countries to change their practices. The Trump administration used tariffs to push for fair trade deals and to address issues like intellectual property theft. In short, tariffs are both economic and political tools, shaping what we pay and how nations interact. Their impact is felt every time you buy an imported product. The Trump administration's aggressive use of tariffs was one of the most controversial and defining features of its economic policy. Rather than following the established path of multilateral cooperation and open markets, the administration chose to challenge the status quo, arguing that previous trade deals had left American workers and industries at a disadvantage. This marked a sharp break from decades of free trade policy, which had prioritized lowering barriers and fostering global economic integration. The administration's approach was unapologetically confrontational, seeking to renegotiate or even abandon long-standing agreements in pursuit of what it called fairer terms for the United States. Tariffs targeted China, the EU, Canada, Mexico, and more, aiming to bring jobs back to American soil and force trading partners to make concessions. The administration argued that these measures would revive domestic manufacturing and correct what it saw as years of unfair trade practices. The U.S.-China trade war in particular saw tariffs imposed on hundreds of billions of dollars in goods, sending shockwaves through global supply chains. Companies around the world scrambled to adapt, rerouting shipments and rethinking sourcing strategies as costs and uncertainty mounted. Some U.S. industries, like steel and aluminum, benefited briefly from the protectionist measures, seeing a bump in production and investment as foreign competition was held at bay. But others, especially farmers, suffered from retaliatory tariffs imposed by other countries. American agricultural exports faced new barriers, leading to falling prices and mounting losses for rural communities. Manufacturers, too, faced higher costs for imported materials and components, forcing them to either pass those costs on to consumers or absorb the losses themselves. This led to rising prices for everyday goods and squeezed profit margins for many businesses. The approach led to tense negotiations, new trade deals, and a cycle of escalation known as a trade war. Each round of tariffs was met with countermeasures, creating an atmosphere of uncertainty and risk for global businesses. Businesses of all sizes struggled to plan for the future, unsure of how long the standoff would last or what new rules might emerge. While some new agreements were eventually reached, the era was defined by confrontation, unpredictability, and a sense that the old order had been upended. Tariffs became a weapon to rewrite global trade rules in America's favor, signaling a willingness to use economic leverage to achieve political and strategic goals. The legacy is a divided business landscape, with some sectors thriving under new protections, while others struggled to survive in a more volatile environment. Today, the debate over tariffs continues as policymakers, economists, and business leaders weigh the costs and benefits of protectionism versus free trade in a rapidly changing world. The Supreme Court's ruling shifts trade power from the president back to Congress, restoring constitutional checks and balances. Now, tariffs must go through the full legislative process, debate, hearings, and votes, making the process slower and more transparent. Trade policy will depend on complex coalitions in Congress, not just executive orders. Lawmakers will be directly accountable for the economic impact of tariffs on their constituents. The president's role shifts to negotiator, not unilateral decider. While some executive authority remains for national security, sweeping tariffs now require congressional approval. trade wars can no longer be launched by the White House alone. For Americans, the biggest change will be at the checkout counter. Tariffs acted as hidden taxes, raising prices on everyday goods, especially food. Recent rollbacks and the Supreme Court ruling are expected to lower costs for families. For example, tariffs on Brazilian coffee once pushed prices up. With tariffs removed, prices should drop. The cost of groceries, a major concern amid inflation, could finally ease. While other factors affect prices, removing tariffs is a direct step to lower living costs. For anyone buying imported goods, this ruling means more money in their pocket. It's a concrete move to make life more affordable. The recent U.S. policy shift is sending shockwaves through the global economy, leaving governments and businesses worldwide scrambling to adapt to a rapidly changing landscape. As the world's largest economy redefines its trade relationships, the ripple effects are being felt in boardrooms, ports, and parliaments across the globe. China, the U.S.'s largest trading partner, was among the first to respond. In a move to stabilize markets and prevent further escalation, Chinese officials quickly agreed to a temporary trade truce. They suspended several export controls, signaling a willingness to ease tensions and restore some predictability to global commerce. This truce, while fragile, has brought a measure of relief to industries on both sides of the Pacific. Meanwhile, Latin American nations are seizing the opportunity to strengthen their economic ties, with the U.S. new trade deals are being negotiated at a rapid pace, with Brazil especially optimistic after the U.S. lifted tariffs on key food exports. For many in the region, this marks a chance to boost agricultural exports and attract new investment, potentially reshaping trade flows for years to come. Across the Atlantic, the European Union is expressing frustration. Despite some progress, high tariffs on steel and aluminum remain in place, threatening jobs and sparking warnings of ongoing disputes. EU leaders are calling for further negotiations, determined to protect their industries and avoid a return to tit-for-tat trade wars that have strained transatlantic relations in recent years. Closer to home, Canada and Mexico have managed to remain mostly exempt from the harshest measures, thanks to existing trade agreements. However, diplomatic tensions still simmer beneath the surface, as all sides remain wary of sudden policy shifts that could disrupt the North American supply chain. Some countries, like Japan, have chosen a different path. Rather than risk being caught in the crossfire, Japanese companies are ramping up investments in U.S. factories. By building cars and electronics on American soil, they can bypass tariffs altogether, a strategy that requires significant commitment and cannot be easily reversed, even if trade policies change again. The era of tariffs has forced global companies to completely rethink their supply chains. Many have rerouted shipments, shifted production to new countries, and made costly long-term changes to their operations. These adjustments have created new winners and losers in the global marketplace, and the effects will be felt for years to come. Even as tariffs begin to fall, the scars of years of trade battles remain. Some factories have closed for good, workers have lost jobs, and entire industries have been forced to adapt or disappear. The uncertainty has left many businesses cautious, unsure if the new era of openness will last. Now, the world is watching closely as Congress takes on its new role in shaping U.S. trade policy. Lawmakers face intense pressure from both domestic industries and international partners, and their decisions will have far-reaching consequences for the global economy. As the dust settles, one thing is clear. The global economic map is being redrawn once again, and every country is racing to secure its place in this new order. The Supreme Court's decision marks a turning point, creating a new landscape of winners and losers in American business. This ruling doesn't just affect a handful of companies, it ripples across the entire economy, reshaping the way industries operate and compete both at home and abroad. Retailers and manufacturers that rely heavily on imported goods will likely see their costs drop as tariffs are rolled back or eliminated. This could mean lower prices for consumers, more variety on store shelves, and a boost for businesses that depend on global supply chains to keep their operations running smoothly. Exporters, such as those in the wine industry, stand to regain access to international markets that were previously closed off by retaliatory tariffs. As these barriers fall, American products may become more competitive overseas, helping companies recover lost sales and expand their global reach. On the other hand, industries that once benefited from protective tariffs, like steel and aluminum, now face renewed global competition. Without those trade barriers, they may be forced to cut prices, innovate, or find new ways to stay profitable in a more challenging environment. These sectors are expected to intensify their lobbying efforts in Congress, seeking targeted protections or subsidies to help them weather the transition and maintain their competitive edge. Farmers, who were hit especially hard by the recent trade wars, could benefit from the reopening of export markets for crops like soybeans and corn. However, they'll also face increased competition from imported agricultural products, making it a mixed blessing for rural America. The overall impact on the U.S. economy will depend on whether the gains from increased exports can outweigh the new challenges posed by heightened competition and shifting market dynamics at home. The business landscape is evolving rapidly, and every sector, from small startups to major corporations, must adapt to these new rules and realities in order to thrive. The era of broad, executive-driven protectionism is coming to a close, ushering in a period where adaptability, innovation, and global competitiveness will determine who truly wins and loses in American business. With Congress now in charge of tariffs, America's trade future is up for debate. The focus shifts from sudden executive action to slow public legislative battles. Proposals like a tariff dividend for Americans face tough scrutiny and uncertain prospects in Congress. The Congressional Budget Office projects reduce deficit gains from tariffs, reflecting the new legal reality. The big question: should the U.S. protect industries with tariffs or return to free trade? The Supreme Court's decision ensures this debate happens in public, with all voices heard. The future of trade policy now belongs to the people and their representatives.